Story time video. Yes, I got tons of stories. Doesn't everyone? We all have stories. But here's a particular story about how I almost broke my hand or thought I broke my hand in school with this. Well, not really with this, but making this in woodshop. It was one of my less smart moments, let's just say, where I really thought, wow, this is a great idea. And it just turned out to be a very, very bad idea. But anyway, this is my moose. Yes, this was originally a cutting board project at school where basically you pick an animal shape and you um, make a cutting board. Now, this is a bunch of different pieces of wood that's laminated together. Okay, it's not just, oh, cut the shape and you're done. There's 4 or 5 different pieces of the same type of wood, which is an oak. And, we had to, part of the project, we had to plane them, make sure that they're completely flush, glue them together, clamp them. It was like a whole big deal. Then once you got the major block, then you picked an animal shape. It was between like a stupid pig and something else. I'm like, oh, the moose is cool. It's pretty nice. I like that. So there we go. I picked the moose. Now, it was supposed to be a cutting board, and eventually you laminate it and everything. And then when the projects were done, we had the option to laminate whether we wanted to or not. And I'm like, nah, I don't want to do that. I was being lazy. So I brought it home just as this, and I figured, it'll be decorative in the kitchen. So I ended up, about a year later, because it kind of sat behind the knife block, we put on a little hanger thing, and now, to this day, it hangs in my living room. It's just a thing I made. So anyway, yes, how in the world did I almost break my hand making this? Well, the story is I was first introduced in woodshop to the routing table. Okay, basically the router itself. Picture like a huge Dremel tool. If you know what a Dremel tool is, okay. And I'm only explaining this if you don't know what a router is. If you know what a router is, that's fine. But anyway, this router basically takes bits like a large Dremel tool, okay? And we have a router table. And we had a setup in our wood shop where we had 5 of these tables around, in a circle. So the table itself is just a flush mounted table on top, and basically there's a bracket where you put the router in upside down. So the idea here is that you have a flat working space where you can move wood against, and keep it flush. But then you have that spinning, bit, whatever it is. There's a whole bunch of different sanding bits on there. So what it really turns into is you take your router and make it kind of like a circular sander. So the idea behind this is that you put on your sanding bit, and then as you're feeding this, the general shape through, you just kind of, go in the lines of your shape, and then you're smoothing or sanding the outside of your edge, right? And then when you're all done, you can lower the whole thing and then actually use the router to round the edges, okay? Now, I'm not up to the routing part yet. I have my rough shape cut out, okay? And by the way, my shop teacher he was a pretty cool guy. Um, what's funny in school? Every teacher just has they have such a teacher thing. Like they all have their own personalities, like just people in general. But my woodshop teacher was like the stereotypical woodshop teacher. This guy really liked wood, and like when he was talking, occasionally he'd be talking about something, and he'd go, you guys should really notice the grain pattern, and really take a good look. And the way he was talking, I mean, we were all immature, but we thought he was going to make out with the wood. Okay, as an adult, I realized that obviously he just has a passion for woodworking, which is awesome, very cool. But he'd be like so into it, like forget there's a classroom, and be like, the grain's so nice, and and there'd be moments where he wouldn't say anything for 10 seconds. Like he'd be giving a speech to the class. Here's what we want to do. And like in the middle of it, he'd be just like really looking. And then he could pop up and go, oh, like forget that he's like a teacher in a classroom. He's like that into wood. Anyway, very nice guy though. So I can't take anything away from him. So, yes, so I'm about to use the routing table, okay, for the very first time. Now, we're shown exactly how to use these tools, so it's not like just throw it into a lion's cage, So I know how to use it, but here's where it gets a little fuzzy, where the whole thing goes awry. The bit or the sanding piece itself, the tool that went onto the router, it was about maybe 3 or 4 inches tall. Okay, and this particular one I was using was a lot wider, maybe 2 inches wide, and it's basically a sanding drum. Okay, so you put it over this big bolt. Okay, then you know, put the nut on top of the bolt, and then you screw the nut down so it's tight. Okay, so when the router is spinning, that it's not freely spinning inside of the thing, but it's tight against it so that the actual bit, the sanding wheel, is spinning. So, and I don't know all the technical terms for it now. I forget all that crap. So anyway, I'm like, all right, cool. You know, I'm excited about the project. It's a happy day. Everything's fun, and I'm turning this nut on top, right? And the bolt itself is large enough to accommodate all these different types of attachments, right? So there's probably a good 4 inches or so of bolt above where the sanding drum is, right? So I put the nut on, and I'm screwing it down, screwing it down. I'm like, Jesus, this is taking forever. It takes me like, 30 seconds just to get the nut all the way down. And then when it gets all the way down, when it's hand tight, we take the wrench out, we, give it a quick little extra something, something, just to make sure it's nice and snug. Everything's cool, fine, we're done. I do my sanding. Now, as I'm doing this, I need to get into this crevice right here. So the large drum that I have is too wide to fit into this crevice. So it's not going to happen. So now I have to change the thing. Meanwhile, 4 of my friends are sitting around the table doing their thing too. And we're kind of talking a little bit here and there, but really working. Of course, school, you get yelled at if you talk too much. So I'm like, I lean over my friend Matt. I'm like, Matt, man, this sucks. Taking this thing out of office is just a pain in the butt. And he's like, yeah, no. Matt was one of my more quiet friends, so he would always just, So if you really wanted to like talk and not be talked back to, you went to Matt. He was the guy. Nice kid though. So anyway, I'm talking to Matt, and of course Matt's like, yeah. I'm like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a simpler way to do this. There's got to be some kind of tool that you can like spin around real quick. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. What if I take the electric cordless drill that we have in the class, and I put on an attachment so that I can just bolt it down that way. And I'm thinking, oh, this is a great idea. So all you do is just zip down, and then you can tighten that real quick. It'd be perfect, right? Why are we all wasting so much time changing out all this thing? I mean, it takes 30 seconds just take the nut off. So Matt, yeah. So I'm like, whatever. And I went and I grabbed the gun. I could not find an attachment that was long enough to accommodate the length of the bolt. It's just, we didn't have anything like that in the classroom. So I'm like, oh, darn it. I didn't say darn it, but I'm like, eh. And then, so I just go back to work and I put the new piece on, and I'm thinking, and it's really bugging me. I'm like, there's got to be a better way to do this. And then all of a sudden, a light bulb went off in my head, but it wasn't like a good, smart idea light bulb. It was like a little, flicker, kind of came on, like the light bulb you see in a hallway in a really, really cheap motel that just kind of flickers on and off. It was that kind of an idea. And I thought, I got it. I know. I'm going to use the hand wrench. When I first put the bolt on, I'm going to put the wrench on the bolt, and I'm going to turn the router on, because the thing spins. So it'll just spin, and then the whole thing will just ride down until I get to the bottom. Good idea, right? Not a good idea, because this thing's spinning at who knows how many RPMs, and I was not prepared for that. So I'm smiling to myself. I didn't tell all of my friends my awesome idea. I thought that they would watch me and bask in the brilliance that is me. And I'm kind of, I got a little smirk on my face. I'm like, yeah, I got this. So I take out the new drum that I need for this part, and I'm all excited about it. I'm like, all right, cool. And I took the nut, and I placed the nut on top by hand, right? Then I take the hand wrench out of the drawer, and I put the hand wrench on top. And as I'm putting it on top, my friend Mike looks over, and I could see him squinting, like, why are you going to hand tighten? It's going to be a lot harder to hand tighten that with that. I mean, you got 4 inches to go. Why are you doing that? Kind of a look like, just he happened to glance over and kind of see the beginnings of something, starting here. And I went over, and I swear to God, this is what I did. I looked over at Mike and I went, like, check this out. And he had a stupid face. and I turned the router on, and the thing is spinning so fast, it went like this. It went. That's how fast that this thing spun this nut on. Now, remember, I have tension because the wrench is completely locked on the nut, so the whole thing went down in a split. It went zzz, just like that. Okay. And before I even realized what happened, the wrench flew out of my hand, spun around, smacked me in the hand, okay, the back of the hand, which you know is sensitive, and then went flying across the room and hits my teacher in the foot. Okay. The second this happens, Mike's watching this now. He watched this whole thing take place. I got the wink, and then turn it on, zit, smack, flew. Okay. So Mike goes, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm fine. Why?" The thing was killing me, but I could not say, "Oh my God, my hand, blah, blah, blah," and then get in trouble for it, right? So the second Mike goes, "Oh my God, dude, are you all right?" And I go, "Yeah, fine." And I put my hand in my pocket, and the thing feels like it's just broken in 100 places. The immense pain, and it was one of those things, you know, when you hurt yourself really bad, but you're in front of other people, or maybe you're outside, and you're like, the embarrassment overwhelms the pain. I'll give you another great example. Wintertime, about 3 years ago, shoveling the front deck on a different house. And I got to the end, it was icy, and I slipped up. It looked like something out of Three Stooges. I went, whoop, and my leg went straight up in the air, fell down the stairs, blah, 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 blah. Now, when I got to the bottom, I jumped up real quick, looked around, brushed myself off like nothing happened. Calmly walked inside, that went, ooh, yeah, this hurts, that hurts. But like when something like that first happens, you're so embarrassed that you're like, So that's what I told Mom. I'm like, "No, what are you talking about?" He's like, "That thing friggin' hit your hand like, 300 miles an hour. Is your hand broken? You still have your fingers?" I'm like, "Mike, calm down. Everything's fine." So my hand's in my pocket, and I'm kind of like, forcing a smile because I really want to go, this hurts, but I didn't want to make anyone realize what's going on. So for other people in the classroom, and even the other people at the table, besides Mike, they had just thought that I dropped the wrench because it just kind of fell and slid over a little bit. So my hand's in my pocket, and it's throbbing. And I walk over, and the teacher at this point, he picked up the wrench to go, "What happened?" I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I dropped the wrench." Like, no big deal, right? And stupid me, I reach out for the wrench with the hand that it just smacked, and the thing is like purple. And he goes, "Oh, what happened to your hand?" And I said, "Oh, that was like 2 or 3 days ago. I got hit with a baseball." Thank God, like sometimes I'm kind of witty. I can come up with stuff. He's like, "Oh, you should cover that. It doesn't look so good." I'm like, "Oh, it's fine." So it turns out I did not break anything, but for the rest of the day, I'm just like, "Oh my God, my hand." And I didn't tell anyone. To this day, besides now everyone else knowing, Mike's the only person that knew what happened. And Mike was a very good friend of mine. And so after class, I told him, like, "Dude, please don't tell anyone. That's pretty embarrassing. It was a stupid thing to do." He's like, "Oh, that's fine." He's like, "I don't care." He's like, "But that looked like you broke your hand or you took a finger off or something." And we laughed about like the next couple of days, but man, that was like one of the stupidest things I've ever done. All for this stupid moose. So every single time I walk down my living room and I happen to take a glance at this, it reminds me of school and woodshop, but particularly that very specific moment when I thought I had a good idea. So what did this teach me overall? It taught me, and I don't always use this little bit of a lesson learned, but it taught me sometimes when you think you have a good idea, step back for a second and think about it again. It's like the Chris Reeves logo, think twice, cut once. Yeah, I thought it was a good idea, but I didn't think that much into it. And occasionally, I still get ideas like that. Like I'm kind of impulsive. I'm like, "Oh, I got a great idea, do it," and then I go, wait a minute, that's not smart at all. And thank God I didn't hurt myself more. It could have been a lot worse. Could have flung up, hit me in the face, hit my eye or hit someone else. It would be even worse. But yeah, that's my my smart idea story for you, for the moose. Now in the background, if you could see this thing right here, I think I showed that. That is a coin bank I made in woodshop. And there's definitely a story that goes with that one as well when I was introduced to powdered felt. So if you like woodshop stories, let me know. I'll do a story on that one in the future sometime. But anyway, yeah, that's my moose story. That's it. Hope you guys enjoyed the story. Hey, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.